Hello, time for another vlog. I haven't done very many this year actually, have I? I think this is about the fourth one this year. Well, maybe I did, I don't remember. I don't know, I know I've done at least 3 others, but anyway. Here's number 4 in that case, if this is the 4th one. I don't have much to say. Although, actually sometimes when I say I don't have much to say, I go on for ages. So, I don't know. I would be going out and making another film about sort of wandering around bits of London, but the weather's been a bit questionable. It's actually nice and warm today. Cloudy, but warm. But the forecast is like a 30% chance of rain or something, so, and it's a bit windy as well for the microphone. But I might go out tomorrow because it's a bank holiday in Britain, and the weather's supposed to be a bit calmer tomorrow. Just have to see, I think. Given that it's a holiday, at least I've got the day off, so. And it'll give me a video for next weekend in that case, or maybe 2 if I walk around a lot. We'll see. I was going to do more City of London videos, but I may put that off because I wanted to do a video of St James's Park, which is pretty nice in the spring. We're getting to the end of the spring now, so it's like now or never really. So I might do that tomorrow. If I can't guarantee blue skies, but it'll be okay. Or not, as the case may be. Other than that, I've been looking at nothing much really. Latest science. Interesting discovery, a sort of meta-study of various biodiversity papers has shown that there's about 550,000 million tonnes of carbon in the biomass of the Earth, the living things on the Earth. That's the good news. The bad news is that is half what it was before human civilization began. So in other words, for the last, let's say 12,000 years, the biomass of the Earth has been declining at some rate or other, and it's currently half what it was back then. It's measured in megatons of carbon. That is like the carbon from which we're made, the hydrocarbons and what have you, the carbon in that. So you're looking at 550,000 megatons of carbon on the Earth in living things. And what was the big surprise of the study was that 80% of that is actually in plants. It was thought that maybe bacteria or something like that would hold most of the biomass, but going through the various studies and adding them all together and working out what it means shows that actually 80% of the Earth's biomass is in plants, and that is the chunk, or a chunk, that has halved since human civilization, mainly because of deforestation for farming and grazing land, and even the managed forests that we do have less vegetation in them than a totally wild one would be, because when we manage the forests we tend to cut back on the ground cover to allow access for people. Another interesting finding was that chicken biomass, or at least domesticated birds, fowl, which is nearly all chickens, outnumber wild birds 30 to 1 in terms of biomass. The biomass of chickens is 30 times more than that of all other wild birds. I mean, there are a few domesticated ducks and stuff as well, but they're negligible numbers in comparison. And the biomass in humans is about 8.5 times that of all other wild mammals. Mammals, not to be confused with animals, right? For those of you who are not clear on that, the mammals are the warm-blooded breastfeeding species. They're a type of animal, but animals includes cold-blooded things like fish and lizards and insects and stuff. But mammals are the humans, the elephants, the horses, critters like that, basically pigs, cows. But humans outnumber the wild mammals 8.5 to 1. There's 60 megatons of carbon of humans, roughly, versus 7 megatons of carbon of wild mammals in the world. On land, it used to be 20 megatons, or 20 megatons of carbon. It's now dropped to 3 megatons of carbon of wild mammals. In the oceans, it used to be 20 megatons of carbon as well. It's dropped to 4 megatons of carbon, mostly in the surviving whales. That's mammals only, right? Because whales and dolphins are mammals as well. The other biomass on the Earth, the next level down, was bacteria, about 13% of the total. Most of them living deep underground, as it turns out. Then there's fungi, followed by archaea and protists, which are single-celled organisms, similar to but not the same as bacteria and stuff like that. And then all other animals make up just 0.5% of the biomass, 2,000 megatons of carbon on the planet. So overall what we've got is, on the land surface, 470,000 megatons of carbon, underground 70,000 megatons of carbon, and in the oceans just 6,000 megatons of carbon. That's what they found. And basically the message is, half of it has gone since civilization started. Due to our incredible impact. Now, as it happens, I also discovered another little fact, that the Convention on Biological Diversity, which was signed by most countries in 1992, stated that every country should set aside 17% of their land area to be protected areas by 2020, 2 years' time. And a study has shown that although 111 nations so far claim to have achieved it, 74 of those are not actually protecting the land and the biodiversity in it at all, or enough, or properly. So these so-called protected areas are still degrading, in fact, in most of those countries. It's the sort of thing where they sign up and then just pay lip service to it and don't do it properly. We probably do have to do it properly, actually. Don't know quite how we get this to happen, but I feel that our economic system is largely to blame, because it's a much more powerful driver of human behaviour than goodwill. At the moment. Maybe we'll all achieve enlightenment and be good in the future. Let's hope it's not too late. What can we do to cut the pressure on the natural environment? We know the population is going to increase. It's 7-point-something billion at the moment, and each billion is almost another 10 megatons of carbon, I think, if I read these figures right. Yeah, roughly speaking. So population is expected to go up to at least 9 billion and peak somewhere between 9 billion and 12 billion, and then, if efforts that are being made at the moment continue, like educating people, especially girls, vaccinations to prevent people dying of diseases so that they don't have to have huge numbers of kids. If these measures continue to work, and the elimination of certain diseases, like polio and so on, then population may peak. The sooner these things are fixed, the lower the peak population will be, but it's probably going to get to 11 billion before it starts to decline fully. So we have to feed these people somehow without putting extra pressure on what's left of the environment. Now, it turns out that I think last year, for the first year, more land went back to the wild than was converted to farmland. I think that's right. So some changes are being made. This may be due to this biodiversity convention in part, I don't know. But I did read that somewhere. So maybe we're sort of getting there. But we can't feed an extra couple of billion people with the farmland we've got unless we come up with something. I guess there are two solutions. Everybody could go vegan, which is very tough. It's probably too tough. I don't think I could. I would. I mean, morally, I should, I suppose, not eat animals, but feeling-wise, it just feels impossible. I do eat more fruit and vegetables than I used to. Let's put it that way. I've biased my diet a bit that way, just for the sake of trying to do the right thing a bit. So I'm like 10% vegan or something, maybe 20% vegan in a good week. I don't know, but at least it's it's something. If we could all do that, that would probably make a difference. That would probably save 1 billion people, right? But the other thing we have to do, I'm afraid, is eat GM foods, because otherwise we cannot grow enough. There's a new generation of GM superfoods coming on. You know, there are natural superfoods, blueberries and so on. They're so full of vitamins and all sorts of good stuff for you, right? Well, manufacturers are producing GM superfoods. There's some golden rice, which contains some extra nutrients. There's going to be some pink pineapples, which contain lycopene, a crucial nutrient. Various modified things, gluten or safe gluten wheat, so that people with celiac disease can actually eat it. It's called good gluten, I think it is. And I think, although the frankenfoods have a bad reputation and people are afraid of them infecting the environment, the alternative is mass starvation and probably increased risk of serious plagues and things like that, actually. Because we can't cut the population safely, i.e. without massive warfare or some extermination program, without doing something like this, which is making the food that we can grow more nutritious. So, you have a choice. Let people starve or eat GM foods. I'm not concerned with GM foods. I don't think they're harmful. Yeah, they may infect the environment with new genes. I think that will probably happen. But in a sense, the environment can, in most circumstances, look after itself in that respect. When some new strain of whatever comes along, like a disease, for example, it may kill a lot of members of a species, but ultimately, in most cases, the species survives, and the disease mutates and becomes less harmful as well, so that it can survive. So if it kills all its hosts, it's no use, it's not going to survive, right? So yes, some plants may escape into the wild, and we may find a population or two devastated or replaced even by them in the wild. I think it's a risk we have to take, actually. We don't know what populations it could be. It could be an absolute disaster. Not just some obscure plant which nobody's heard of being replaced, but it could be something serious. But it's a calculated risk. The alternative calculated risk is mass starvation and mass migration and political and international chaos, which will be destructive on a massive scale. So I would say be good and eat your GM foods and hope for the best. If it does start to infect the wild, maybe we can stop it, or limit it, or something. And it may be, in some cases, it actually benefits the wild too. The odds are such an infection would be neutral in the long term, in the same way that a new mutation in an existing plant, most of the time they die out because they're not as beneficial, but sometimes you get a beneficial mutation and the species evolves a bit. So the GM is like an artificial evolution, a little kick to it. And it may be okay enough, let's say. If it isn't, well, it's hard luck. We're going to trash the planet one way or the other. But I just think the risk of not doing it is too high. And speaking of diseases, Ebola is back again in Africa. But this time it's not in a rural area, it's in a town, Mbandaka, apparently. Never heard of it. In the Congo, I think. Now this is a disease that spreads like wildfire and has a very high kill rate. One of those that hasn't mutated into a milder form yet. So it could spread, and it would be like the zombie apocalypse, really, almost, if that spread around the world, because it kills a huge percentage of people. There's only 40 cases in the report I read, and the World Health Organization is on it, and they're riding around the outback of the Congo on motorbikes trying to trace 4,000 people who have been in contact with these 40 already, to vaccinate them, because there is now a vaccine, although it hasn't been tested fully or properly, because the previous Ebola outbreak died out due in part to vaccinations and keeping people in isolation and so on. But the idea is you ring fence the infected people by vaccinating everybody they've been in contact with, or as many as possible, and hope that that's enough. So they're on it. If they fail, because it's a city, of course, it's especially dangerous because many more people get in contact with the infected people before they're discovered. 100 on average with each one here. We'll find out. If the zombie apocalypse is coming, we don't need to worry about GM foods. It's another cure for overpopulation. An effective one, but not a good one. And only effective in the short term, because it means that the surviving humans can be irresponsible again and overpopulate again, because they won't have had the chance to learn how to fix it through social and scientific means. They'll just have died off instead. So it's better to do it consciously. It's a kind of long curve, and we're getting the population to stop crashing and just pick up again. And I suppose I should do the curve that way up, shouldn't I? And have it, instead of peaking, have it coming back down again to some reasonable level. Whatever that is. I know there are conspiracy theories about it. 500 million, 1 billion, well, whatever. As long as it probably needs to be down at least to about 4 billion, really. But anyway, that will happen over the course of the next couple of centuries, one way or another, perhaps. Or we'll go into space and keep spreading. Other than that, I don't know, I have been thinking about enlightenment a bit. And I probably need to meditate more or something. I want to tune my brain up and get the big experience, right? I've had the little ahas, the satori, sort of, and temporary non-verbal realizations and things, but not the full-on life-changing experience, which is what it's all about. But I've been reading How Enlightenment Changes Your Brain by Dr. Andrew Newberg and Robert Waldman, and they say that scientific evidence indicates that frequent little E experiences or meditation tune the brain up, get it ready for the big rewiring when it happens. So you're kind of wiring it slowly and gradually rewiring it, and eventually you get close enough and it can tip over the edge somehow, and in you go. So got to keep on with it, basically. Interesting that their brain scan studies show that the enlightened state is very, very similar to, if not the same, in fact, as that experienced temporarily by Pentecostals when they're doing their speaking in tongue bits. You know, in the Pentecostal churches, people will go into a trance state and start babbling away in what sounds like nonsense. Like that, okay. Differs from individual to individual, okay. But the brain scans found that when they're doing that, the language centre of the brain, far from being active, is actually inactive. Which might explain why it's not a normal spoken language, I suppose, I don't know. But the actual brain states are similar to those of, say, an enlightened person when meditating. So the frontal lobes are active, and the parietal bit of the sides here is inactive. The parietal lobes gives you your sense of self, and of course an enlightened person is a no-self person. Another group of people they found with the same brain patterns are psychic mediums, especially when they're doing automatic writing. That's where they go into a kind of a trance, a waking trance usually, and they just write something with their hands without focusing on it consciously. In fact, there are some that can do both hands and write different things. Okay, there have been historically, and their brains are also in this state apparently, along with the whirling dervishes, the Sufis, who spin around on the spot and go and wave their heads and chant. They can go into an enlightened state of trance. And of course meditators. It usually takes experienced meditators something like 50 minutes to an hour to get into the trance state. It can take the whirling dervishes quite a long time as well. But the Pentecostals and the automatic writers can get into state in about 5 minutes sometimes. Very interesting, that. But these are still little E states in the sense that they're temporary. The big E experience is kind of the same, except it's permanent and life-changing, and I guess stronger. Not having been there, I can't tell you, but from books I've read and so on, it appears to be quite a profound, life-changing experience. Okay, so, and a little e can be life-changing, but you tend to drift back towards normality again. There's probably a grey area in between, different for individuals, of course. So yeah, I've got to meditate more. I can do formal meditation of sitting there and doing the mindfulness of breathing, as it's called, that I've done a video about before. You can at any time listen to the environmental sounds, and it's when you're paying attention to it, and if your verbal mind starts, you notice it, oh, I'm thinking about something, oh, I'm feeling some thought, whatever it is, feeling some sensation, emotion, whatever's distracting you, bring your attention back. This builds up the ability of the frontal lobes here. I think especially the left prefrontal cortex, which is the one that focuses on positive thoughts. The right one tends to be negative, and miserable, and look for problems everywhere, which is okay, because things need to be solved sometimes, and it's being a bit pessimistic is actually a useful skill, actually, but it's more fun to be positive. Okay, and in modern society, most of the problems are quite artificial and not really of the seriousness that, like, some tiger is pouncing on you or something. So we can relax a bit. We don't need those quite the same level of caveman skills now. Or cavewoman skills, I suppose. And cave anything else. Right. Thoughts? Comments below, please. And do subscribe if you like what you hear. Like if you like it. Dislike if you dislike it, I suppose. And all that. And, well, I'll see you in another video or vlog at some point. Bye for now.